Hello, and welcome to Right to Be Wrong, the show that revives the art of conversation, accommodating varied views on sports, culture, politics, world events, and every topic under the sun. After all, you have a right to be wrong. Here are your hosts, Dave and Tony.
Tone, you hairy man. How is that hairy back going? You haven't been in that?
No, not yet. Not yet. It will be done. But I'm just exploring options around. Do I get a discount if I get more of the body done?
Well, maybe you should tell us a 2-for-1 deal. I'll come along.
Imagine the poor person. Imagine the poor person working in the clinic that day. I've got a couple of guys coming in. And, that'll be okay. I'll be able to do that one. And then we turn up.
Two Sasquatches.
Yes, that's right.
In the mankinis.
And then as we walk in, the Chewbacca sound is happening.
I hope the laser clinic's got sharks with laser beams.
Laser beams
on their head.
Dave, what are we talking about? Let me hit you with something, Dave. Australia is one of the most educated countries in the world. Almost half of our young adults now hold a university degree. But as we added more graduates, Dave, what have we lost? The tradie.
And more.
Oh, and so much more.
Much more. I'll start with, I'm going to put this out there because I can't believe people aren't talking about it, because I'm an idiot barber, and if I can work this out, surely our Minister for Education, our government can. Our Minister for Education and his office has a target for 80% of people to obtain a bachelor's degree. He put a post out a couple of weeks ago saying that of last year's Year 12 graduates, 62% have offers into uni. So here's some scary numbers for you. On the assumption that the 50% of people that have an average IQ and above have all taken up an offer last year to university. So that means no one started their own business. No one's gone into the family business. No one's a creative and decided, no, I'm pursuing my music or I'm pursuing my art. No one's enjoyed, working with their hands and wants to be a tradesman. That means that 12% of people with a below average IQ are currently in an Australian university, and they want that to be 30% of people with a below average IQ in university, which then means only one of two things. You're either going to spike dropout rates as people that couldn't pass their HSC get into university, or you're going to dumb down the course to the lowest common denominator to ensure that your fail rates are acceptable. That's scary.
Oh, absolutely, Dave. But what's driven this, Dave? So here's some more context. In 1981, about 1 in 4 Australians had a post-school qual. By 2021, it was more than half.
And by post-school qual too, that included TAFE.
That's right.
That's like a diploma in secretarial services, a diploma in waxing your jugs, that sort of stuff.
So by 2021, it's now more than half, and a third of all adults now hold a bachelor's degree or higher. Among 25 to 34-year-olds, it's closer to 47%. So 1 in 2 in the 25 to 34 category have now got a degree.
Right? Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But at the same time, Dave, what's happened with apprenticeships? They've actually swung wildly.
I heard
when government puts money into it, it's some type of incentive program or the VET or those RTOs that actually run these programs that are paid by the government to run these programs. When the government invests, they do get pickup, right? But clearly not at the level that they need to meet, and we'll talk about this throughout the podcast, the 90,000 homes they want to build or whatever it's going to be between now and 2040. And that's going to lead on to another discussion around what does Australia look like, which is probably a separate podcast episode.
Yes.
So, Dave, I've worked in businesses where in 5 years and then in 10 years where you want to be. And you measure that in terms of metrics, right? Because in any strategy, you need a thread of metrics to be able to track how you're going, right? So therefore, in 15 years' time, if we want to be 40 million people, how do we get there without impacting the standard of living, right?
We're not.
That's what I mean.
We're already behind the 8 ball.
So there needs to be planning for that, because what that does is when you actually set that aspirational number, or you might say we just want to be the same number, but have a plan, and then leading into that or following that up, you're going to have a plan for how do we get there? What skills do we need? Are our education programs properly set up and funded to make sure we get the right level of skills to get to the number that we've all agreed is the number we want?
Exactly. Well, so people take me serious. Let me put my glasses on so I seem like I'm more intelligent. And that way for everyone on YouTube. They're like, oh, but geez, now he makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So, because I think when I don't have my glasses, people don't take me seriously.
I don't take you seriously either way, Dave.
I kind of figured that. What if I had a monocle? Would you take me seriously if I had a monocle?
Yes, Colonel Clink.
And the top of Hogan
Schultz.
eyes, nothing. We'll start with when I was driving in here today, lo and behold, and this is after I'd already suggested this topic, I heard today that Australia in the first quarter of this year, we had 10,000 people complete apprenticeships, which is the lowest level in 11 years. So at the same time as the government's on a big Australia policy and massive infrastructure projects, and maybe I'd take the glasses off if I'm not going to sound intelligent by not pronouncing my words. At the same time as the government's got these large infrastructure projects going on, and it's got this 1.2 million house build for this chasing the big Australia policy with another 13.5 million people, we literally are running the lowest apprenticeship completion rate in a decade. So I've just laid out that we've got people at uni that have below average IQs, and I'm not just talking about the staff. We have a situation.
Oh, yeah.
Very catty. But I mean that seriously, having worked in there. A weave. My first day going to work at the University of Sydney, I remember clearly, I'm like, you're out of your depth. You are so far out of your depth. You know, here's the boy from Blacktown, barber for many years. All right, you finished your bachelor's degree. You know, you're going to find out that you're going to be surrounded by the greatest minds and you're going to look like an idiot. And after 10 years working there, I realized maybe 5 to 10% of university staff are brilliant. And of course, that number's low because I'm lumping all the academics with the professionals. If it's on the academic side, then you're talking about there are some great minds. But even some of them, they're brilliant in their little field, but that's it. But how on earth are we going to sustain anything if we don't have electricians, plumbers, carpenters, bricklayers? So we've got tension in our own government where we've got the Prime Minister setting these 1.2 million targets, but he's got a minister that's telling him, I want 80% of people to have a university degree. University to me, and we've spoken about this in the How to Fix Higher Education episode, but we really should have nothing more than 20-30% of people tops at universities. What we need to do is literally take away the opportunity for some of these people to go into university, so they're forced to look at alternative career paths, and then we'll start to address this issue and only start to address the issue around trades. But for me, if you're looking right now at is it better to do a trade or go to university, the first question you've got to ask yourself is, are you intellectually advanced? You know, are you an academic type? Do you want to be an accountant? Do you want to be a lawyer? Do you want to be a doctor? The things that are genuine to me, like STEM and a few business degrees and the like, the genuine stuff. Otherwise, don't waste your time. All you're going to do is incur a lot of debt. You're going to waste valuable years that you could be earning money, because if you go and get an apprenticeship, you're going to get paid for 4 years. When you go to uni, you're going to pay the university. I'm hearing of some unbelievable money for apprentices now.
Yeah.
And now, admittedly, some of it's being propped up by they're working on the big infrastructure project. They're working nights or weekends. They're getting danger money, meal allowance, like all these things to top it up. But I'm saying here are people that are making $90,000 a year as a first-year apprentice.
That's right, which is more than an engineering grad.
Yeah, exactly. And
the engineering grads hocked up 40 grand for a degree. 40?
More.
There you go.
More.
Yeah.
It's actually, when I left the university, and this University of Sydney, 2022, I think it was $25,000 per semester for engineering degrees for international students. There's Commonwealth support. But an engineer is probably racking up, $60,000 to $90,000 as a domestic student in debt.
Over 3 years. Over
4.
4 years. Okay, fine.
Can be 5, depending on what engineering you're doing.
Yep.
But for me, because this is something I've discussed with the Mauritian Queen, I've said our little man's he's quite a smart kid. He's got his mum's brains, thankfully. And I said that when he finishes year 10, I said I want him to do an apprenticeship. So he's got a skill to fall back on that no matter what happens with AI or whatever. But B, I want him to understand what it's like to actually work in the real world and with your hands and, no air conditioning and all that sort of stuff. I said, and then when he's finished, if he wants to go to uni, no worries. Then he can work 1 or 2 days a week while he's at uni. And if he likes his trade, for example, he could go do a Bachelor of Construction Management. If he hates it, he can do something altogether different. I don't care. But the people I talk to that are in the trades now and the money it's making, basically any tradesman is at $1,200 a day is what they're charging themselves out at the moment.
I know. And that's supply and demand, right?
100%.
So any kid who's in year 10 now, about to leave year 10 into year 11, and there's a parent out there thinking they're not cut out for this, now's the time to strike, right?
Yeah.
Because in 4 years' time, call it 6 years' time, 4-year apprenticeship and a couple of years on the tools, they'll be earning over 120 grand.
Easy.
All right. Think about that.
Yeah.
That's a 23, 24-year-old.
Yep. I was talking to a bricklayer about 5 days ago, and he said it's $2.70 a brick at the moment to lay. And he goes, you should be able to do 1,000 bricks a day easy. Now, admittedly, that 1,000 a day, the price you're paying for a bricky's labourer. Now, normally a labourer will work to 2 brickies, but even if you're paying him yourself, you're getting $2,700 a day. If you're paying him $700 a day and you've got $500 a day in costs for your ute and your materials, it's good money that you're making. Now, admittedly, that's hard yakka, laying bricks. But at the end of the day, the point is that to get good tradesmen now, if you're not paying really good money, they're not working for you, full stop. It just isn't happening. You'll get the guy that might be cheaper, but you'll be calling back the good guy in a month's time or 6 months' time with the problems.
So I've got a mate, he does a bit of construction work. He plays in my soccer team, and we caught up on Friday night for our end of year dinner, and he was just beside himself. Tone, do you know any chippies? I can't find them. I literally cannot find them. Yep. And the ones I do find, to your point, they're paying not well over, you're paying a lot of money for, which eats away at his margin.
Yeah.
Right? And he goes, he just cannot find one to save himself. Like, I read here the Housing Industry Association says we're short, not thousands, tens of thousands of tradies.
Yeah.
It's not building homes either.
In fact, I read a report, 90,000, and that didn't include everything. That was just to meet the 1.2 million home target.
And that doesn't include, you touched on it earlier, the investment in infrastructure to support the transition to renewables, right? That requires tradies as well, right?
Well, actually, driving in today, I heard something about that. There's been a costing done because what people forget about renewables is we would have to change all our infrastructure, our lines, and the estimate is between $7 and $9 trillion. So in other words, 4 or 5 times Australia's total GDP. In other words, what's starting to come out now is this is not feasible.
Which is about 3% of the amount of tariff revenue that Donny has brought in.
Yeah, of course, they're working.
$300 trillion.
They're working well. But to get to the point of him, and by the way, I should say for our non-Australian listeners, we're doing Australia speak here. Don't talk Australian, mate.
Sure,
a chippy is a carpenter. A brickie is a bricklayer. A sparky is an electrician. We just, in Australia, we give everything a nickname.
An accountant is a dumbass.
So he's a bean counter.
A barber is a retard.
They are retards. I would suggest I'm the only retard that has a bachelor's and a master's. Which just goes to show you what's university worth if your barber's got a master's degree.
And this is this, Dave?
I should charge $500 a haircut.
That's right.
I should hang him up. I should hang him up in the shop and just go, no. Do you want the bachelor's cut or do you want the master's cut? What's the difference? $200 an hour.
What drove this, Dave? I think if I go back to the mid to late 80s, when unemployment was at 12, 13% maybe, we were actively encouraged. I remember, so when my brother was in year 10, and that would have been 86, 3 in 10 people went on to year 12, right? 3 or 4 years down the track when we're close to a recession, and there's not many jobs out there for young people, that climbed to about 6 or 7. So 70% of kids going to year 12. That seems to have just snowballed where I would say that number's over 80% now, potentially 90. Yeah, and then of those, what you're telling me is How many? Of that 90%, how many are going on to uni?
62%
That's right.
last year.
That's right. So therefore, been this massive momentum, and I kind of get it to the extent, Dave, that through the same period in the 80s, we opened up the economy, we deregulated the dollar, we created a massive services industry, we shifted away from non-competitive manufacturing.
Well, we said we were going to be a smart economy.
I get all that.
Which, if you're so smart, how do you forget that you still need truck drivers and plumbers?
And
I think that's smart.
I think that's my point. So I think it was grounded in good logic.
It was grounded in a good heart, bad logic.
Yeah, but I think it was grounded in it was well thought out for the time. What they didn't expect was that the whole process of kids going to university to get university degrees that aren't worth much money, that aren't worth much in terms of jobs.
Well, they've become the higher education crash.
Yeah, and it wasn't going to snowball, right? This thing kept on growing. At some point, someone should have said, right, and then committed to a long-term program of reinvesting in TAFE or reinvesting in the vocational education sector, and they did that. I think the Liberal government did it under Howard and Costello, but then they had that whole VET scandal where you had these training people providing all these useless courses of people paying $2,000 and $3,000 a pop that was funded by the government.
Yeah, they weren't even turning up.
That's right.
And they just get a piece of paper saying they have a diploma in useless, interpretive dance. But I would suggest the rocket fuel for this, after we went down the path of saying we're going to be a smart economy, we're going to upskill our workforce by more education. These would be the jobs of the future as the manufacturing goes offshore and/or automation. I'd say the rocket fuel was the point in which we removed the cap place system in university and went to demand driven.
When was that, Dave?
Was that the 2010?
Okay, and just from my knowledge, and so talk to our listeners around what the cap place system was.
The cap place system was that you've got X number of places that you can offer. So therefore, that's why your admissions rank mattered, right? Because you need to hit the requirements. So let's turn around and call it, let's say in engineering, you've got 100 places. That's it. And
those places were per university, right?
Per university.
Sydney Uni, you've got 1,000 engineering spots. ACU, you've got 100. UWS,
correct.
Western Sydney, you've got 400.
So it'd be on what that uni offered. It'd be on their capacity. It'd be on what the Commonwealth support would be. So limited number of Commonwealth supported places, allocated the places that could take the capacity to deliver the outcome.
And then those unis could make decisions around, like they would have a funding envelope. Based on that funding envelope, they'd decide to run these courses, and based on the capacity for them to service those courses, that actually land a number.
Well, more the courses at that time were more to do with prestige, really.
Yeah.
Right, that's what it was. You weren't, University of Sydney wasn't interested in a Bachelor of Circus Arts.
Okay, so my question is, Dave, when they shifted out of this cap-placed process that you've just described to demand-driven, where'd the money come from? Because what I mean is, it almost must have happened hand in hand with the whole impact of the international students, right? Because if university funding had been capped to a certain point, then all of a sudden the handbrake's taken off and people say, no, it's no longer capped. We can now, you can now deliver as many courses as you like, right? As long as someone's paying for it.
Well, the cap came off and there were reductions in the amount of Commonwealth support. So what they created was like national priority band 1, band 2, band 3.
Yep.
So what that meant was, and this was applied to a subject, not a course. So what it would mean is if that subject was considered something that would be in a national interest, so things like mathematics, because we don't have enough of them, so that would be considered like national priority. So the Commonwealth support on that was the highest. So for a figure, let's say at the time it was $3,000 for a subject, a student would pay, say, $1,000 or $500. And the higher the band, the higher you would pay. So then, if it was band 1, you might be paying $1,000. Band 2, $2,000, so on and so forth. So at the time, the demand-driven system still meant you would have Commonwealth support basically for every domestic student who wanted it, but they did rejig how much Commonwealth support was worth. Now, a lot of universities claim that international students support a lot of their work. But generally speaking, they'll always talk about it funds our research. Now, research is important. The one thing I'll defend universities here is universities, if doing the right thing, shouldn't have to struggle. Like someone shouldn't spend a third of their year writing research grants. If they're an expert in, like I've got a friend at UQ and he's like game theorist and AI and energy, like he should be well funded to try and really stop the bullshit around the renewables and be able to say, here's what works, here's what doesn't, here's what's got potential, and he shouldn't be chasing his tail on research grants all year. But he chases his tail for research money because we miss, well, the universities say it's underfunded. I disagree. I think it's funded enough and the universities misallocate because you get people like Dr. Ray Gunn that get funded to do a thesis on a B-girl's experience in Sydney's B-boy scene and the intersection of, culture and dance. Like that's, you want to do it, knock yourself out. You can offer it, but you pay for it. So I think if universities turn around and actually allocated their funding well, streamlined well, got rid of the fat and waste, I think then you could, have people doing research without having to spend, so much of their time just chasing grants. And then, of course, if we streamline that, then what's going to happen? If you've got a whole bunch of kids, let's use 100,000 as a number any given year. If you're targeting 80%, that means 80,000. You've only got 20,000 left that you've got to try and attract to trades. Now, I've just laid out that 80%, assuming that everyone above 50 is not interested in all those other paths. What you're also saying is the bottom 10% of people fall along the medical or close to, I'm not sure if it's a full 10%, but they're close to the medical definition of retarded, right? So what you're then saying is we strike them out because you don't want them working with sharp tools and they're not going to uni. So what you're saying is your pool that's left over is the 10% of people that are slightly above those with a mental retardation are where you're going to attract all your tradesmen from. Now, it's also folly to think the tradesmen aren't smart because the best tradesmen really are the ones that can look at something and envisage what it's going to look like before the finish, which takes a certain level of intellectual capacity to do. And even still in a world of digitized, electrified, something like an electrician from 1950, what he needed to know and do compared to what an electrician's going to need to know and do in this world are vastly different things, which means you would argue, if anything, that some of our trades are evolving to a level at what you actually want are some of the best minds to be working in trades.
I agree, Dave. So I think...
Say it again.
Oh, I agree, Dave.
One more time for the dummies.
I agree, Dave. With this push to universities and there's the message for decades, right? If you don't get, there's almost in people's minds a thought that if you don't go to uni, you somehow failed, right? So there's been this massive push of people to uni to get educated, and it actually created like a stigma around becoming a tradie, right? As if it was some type of second-class citizen.
We reinforce that stigma too with some of the things that we do on a daily basis that people don't even think about.
Well, I agree.
So, for example, right, what do we all do if your boys, right? Let's say your boys follow in your footsteps and become, accountant extraordinaires. Are you going to go to their graduation?
Sure.
You'd be proud of them?
Yeah, absolutely.
So would I.
Yeah.
Do we have a graduation for tradies?
No, we should.
Do we stand there and go, John, hey, really proud of you, son. You've been learning the lay bricks for 4 years, mate. You finally, mate. We don't. So what we do is we're reinforcing you're special. You're better. You're better than these other ones over there.
Right.
And so that's a problem.
But I think it's not going to self-correct, but I think we've overcorrected by sending too many people to uni. So the thing is, how do we get, because we need cybersecurity analysts, but we also need plumbers, right? We need.
Well, actually, yes, we do, but I'd use that argument as a better one and say we need cybersecurity experts, but we need the experts that understand the framework that instill all the fiber optics and the Wi-Fi and the whatnot that can tell us where the risks are in the system.
That's right.
Right?
Like, who's going to tell you that?
Yeah, the hardware.
That's right.
So it's going to be the guys that do it. So that would be a really good example of showing where you need both sides. Just on my point about we reinforce it too, it's one of the things I hate about LinkedIn. I get sick of people, putting up their new Harvard Business School online. Think, I got another certificate or I've just achieved. Because you know what? You know what I've never seen on LinkedIn?
What's that?
I've never seen anyone on LinkedIn just go, just finished laying the 20,000th brick on this house onto a new project. So proud.
You should do, Dave. I want you to create a micro credential.
I will. Because
for cutting hair.
No, I'm going to do it all together. I'm going to call it the Master of Winker. So, but the point is, when you ever see tradesmen post up, oh, look at this work, I've just finished this great project, now I'm doing this. And like, we've developed there's a whole thing going on with the degree
class.
The degree class. It's very wankerish and self-important.
But Dave, I think part of it's generational as well. Like there's less of it in my age group, but in some of the younger cohorts, there's this fascination and desire.
You got to put all your credentials out there. Your email signature will be.
But Dave, the endless content creation, right? Like,
I tell you now to all those people, stuff on LinkedIn.
Well, like I had an experience today. Blew my mind. I spoke to 15 different people about the color red. Wow.
That's
really,
and it is like I get it. I know that generationally things change, and I don't have an issue with that, right? Because I know I'm just becoming the fat old angry man. I shouldn't say becoming. I am the fat old angry man, but at some point, again, as being we're in the generation it's about to become. Well, we are the leaders, and we're really about to take over, right? A lot of the older stuff. They're going to retire, die, all that sort of stuff. It really is up to us to start setting a better example. And maybe this is a conversation we need to have. When you've got commencement speeches at graduations, let's start getting some better people that don't talk about, oh, you've achieved so much and your path is going to be so good and here's what I did and here's how you. Maybe we need someone to turn around and stand up and go, congratulations. You managed to get through with P's Gets degrees and you hit submit at 11:59 before the due date for your you turned it in assessments, but you're not special. Because when you turn up to your office tomorrow, be thankful that the bricklayers laid the bricks for the building. Be thankful the concreter poured the concrete. Be thankful the electrician keeps the lights on, the plumber keeps the toilets flushing. Be thankful to your barista for your morning coffee. And be thankful to the truck driver who delivered the milk. And be thankful to the guy that milked the cow. Like maybe we need that type of commencement speech that reminds them that you are lucky enough to be cognitively inclined, that you can study this stuff and stand on the shoulders of those people. And as you reach for the stars, you take them on the journey with you, to use the corporate speak, and stop thinking you're better than them and spend all your time, posting on LinkedIn, you're amazing. How about, great. We have no issue. You go and become a CEO, you make millions. But as you do it, take everyone along, respect everyone, appreciate, because at the end of the day, when you have a natural disaster, I'm yet to see an emergency airdrop of accountants in first.
If there was, I would be there.
You'd be number one. I could see you rappelling down from the Black Hawk Tone.
That's right.
Night vision goggles.
I'd be playing the part of Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder.
That would be an awesome look. But this is.
By the way, you mentioned barista. You've got barista written all over you.
I could be a barista.
Imagine the small talk.
That'd be awesome.
How's your weekend, Tony? Oh, great, Dave. Yeah. I've been reading this great new I've been listening to this great new podcast, Right to Be Wrong. Really? Sounds great. But what are you having, Tony, as usual? Yeah, just a soy macchiato.
Do you still want that stirred counterclockwise tone?
Yes, please, Dave. Thanks.
But you know why I couldn't be a barista? Because I've got no hair for a man bun.
That's right.
So why the baristas? There's certain looks. That's the other thing. That there are certain looks that sort of say, no, you can only do that job now.
That's right. And you need a man bun for that. Now, listen, Dave, I did come across the approach that Germany's taken. And they've got like this dual training system where trades...
Oh, they just invade shit.
No, where trades apprenticeships are integrated into industry pathways, right?
Yep.
So it's better integrated. So there's a clearer line of, like a clearer pathway between the people doing the trades and some of the roles they're going to end up in, right? And industry are engaged in that. So it's not completely government funded, but it provides certainty of supply of talented labor to industry from a university perspective as well as from this other vocational perspective, so that there's certainty around, we've got the best plumbers. We're getting the best sparkies to help support us in these renewable projects or infrastructure.
You know what our slogan would be? For if I had a company teaching apprentice plumbers, I'd just write, our plumbers are the shit. That would be.
Okay, that's it for another episode of Right to Be Wrong. Seriously. But I think they're the types of things we've got to be looking at, Dave. Better integration between what we're trying to achieve, where we currently are, right, and then get industry involved to help create the pull, the demand, right, create the pathways to say, no, we're a big engineering outfit. We know we're going to need sparkies and everything else as part of a massive program we just invested in with the New South Wales government. And that's how you create these pipelines.
And if the government wants these big projects in a big Australia over the next 40 years, doing something like that, they could, if you're integrating properly, what they could say is, we pay the first 2 years' salaries. Because we know the first couple of years they're not making money for you. So something really super generous that's really going to help companies and encourage them to take them on. But speaking of integration, the other thing I would do is integrate our TAFE system with our university sector. You know, again, getting back to that whole point of all these people with their graduation where there's nothing for your trade, let's start having people mix, you know, so you don't think you're special. So when you walk onto a campus, I know there's going to be a lot of, you know, how do we redesign campuses? How do we maximize space? What are we doing? I know it needs a lot of deep thought, but it's certainly possible. But, yeah, let people start to actually walk onto campus and make friends with people doing plumbing and electrical and so on and so forth. Let's stop bifurcating society at that point by just really reinforcing that,
I think, Dave,
self-image.
I think from certain parts, like where the parts of Sydney where you and I grew up, we would have grown up and we had mates who did get into trades.
I got older, but I haven't grown up.
Some did go to uni.
Yeah.
So I've got mates who are like concreters, plumbers, have done fantastically well. I've got mates who, like, you know, got corporate jobs. I've got mates who work in government. I think there are other parts of Sydney potentially where there is like a higher proportion of kids who get forced into that uni, into that elite set.
North Shore.
And then they look at tradies as if they are second class citizens, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's some merit in that, but I actually do think it's going to self-correct, Dave, and I think it could self-correct pretty quickly, because at the end of the day, people can see the money in it, right? And that's going to drive the outcomes.
Yeah.
And until that demand is satisfied, rates are going to continue to go up, and there's going to be pressure from businesses, because businesses are paying top dollar now. Like, you think about the variable cost of a plumber. So 15 years ago, on a big project, you might have had to allocate 3% of your budget to trades, all right? Now it could be 7 or 8%, because it's the inflation on the wages that you're paying a tradie has gone up so much. One or two things happen. You pass that on in terms of price to the end customer, or you eat your margin.
Yeah.
Right? And that'll only happen to a certain point.
Well, the second one's been happening, and that's why we've had so many builders go broke.
That's right, because they can't access it. And then when they do, they have to pay them over the odds.
Yeah.
And then they end up falling over.
And the problem is, it's one thing if one variable within your business you're having to pay over the odds, but the trouble is they're paying huge interest rates. They're paying on the materials, because I heard something like material costs have gone up 46% since COVID, and it's about a third on land costs since COVID. So by the time you've got higher interest rates, increased land costs for developers, increased building materials, and then you've got the labour as well, there's just no profit in it.
Oh, no. So I think governments are waking up to the issue, but it's going to take at least a decade to get them back on track.
Yeah,
right?
because longer, because let's say today our government listened to the Right to Be Wrong podcast and said that highly intelligent hairy bean counter and that fat dumbass barber know what they're talking about. Let's ring them up and have them advise our policy in the next month.
You and I would kill it in Canberra.
Oh, wouldn't we?
Oh.
And well, I'd want to go to Canberra when you've got one of those journos that can then talk to us like Peter Harvey, interview us and then say, Peter Harvey, Canberra. I think that even if that was the case, you're 10 years off hitting your numbers immediately today. We have dug ourselves, and the big problem too is when you talk about training tradies, we're about to fall off a cliff with master craftsmen, because a lot of tradies in Australia now, here's where I'd love the data, but I know enough. I'm pretty confident I'll be on the money. There's a lot that are 50 to 60 years in that range, and a lot of them are about to pull up stumps in the next few years. So a lot of the genuine old school master craftsmen that can actually repair, can actually build, do things properly, not just, let's get a bit of no more gaps because it's not lining up, or, no, it'll be right. And it's like, no, I'm telling you, 12 months' time, you're going to be evacuating that building. They're about to retire, which means where are the people coming from? They're going to train the tradesmen. So we do need to work rapidly. We do need, and I mean within the next 12 to 24 months, our government really should be rapidly allocating to TAFE, talking to TAFE about, okay, stop offering pissy $90,000 salaries to people to teach. We're going to have to pay $150 to attract in some good people. And start to try and encourage those people. Look, I know you're going to retire in a few years, but no, you turn up to TAFE. It's pretty cushy. Stay a bit longer. So that'd be the first thing before all those people are just done and dusted and out the door.
And I would have thought, because a lot of this is geared towards the housing issue, the infrastructure issue, the renewable transition. We're just running out of people to do stuff. One option, bring in tradies from overseas.
Yeah, well, that could work if done well, but it still comes with other problems. Because I've said to you before that, let's take your two boys, let's assume they're 16 right now rather than 12 and 10. If they were both doing apprenticeships right now, they live with you. They don't need a house. We bring in 2 more tradesmen with families. We need 2 more houses. So I can add to the problem. But we want to be bringing in the right tradesmen from the right countries that have the right quality controls themselves, right?
That's right.
So, as much as people can get as offended as they want, India is not exactly renowned for knowing it's got the best building and construction and everything. So Albo's going off there and think he's going to just bring them all in. Now, I'm not saying don't give anyone an opportunity, exclude all Indians or that they're all shit. But if you're going to set up a proper program to test them before they come through and actually, in India have Australian qualified tradesmen, checking their work, testing them for a month to see what they can build, okay, knock yourself out. Otherwise, we're going to have to rely upon North America, Western Europe, places where we have previously tried, tested, and true quality standards for tradesmen to come in, so we don't end up with another downstream problem.
So these trade careers, you want them to be aspirational, right? Like I actually think there'd be, and I've heard of, who was it? Someone told me, I was speaking to someone, actually it was one of the guys at work. He said, listen, we knew in year 11 that school wasn't for our eldest daughter. We knew. So we got her out and she started a chef's course, and now she's working in a nice restaurant somewhere, loving what she does. Just knew school wasn't for her.
Yep.
And that's
one of the tricks for parents, right? That's where a lot of this responsibility is.
Yeah, and
don't dream that every kid you have is the next brain surgeon.
That's right, but make these trade careers more aspirational. So good pay, clear progression, and recognition. To your point, like when a TAFE has 46 plumbers graduating, cough up a bit of coin, get them into a hall, call out their name, get their dads and mums there. Happy days, because it's just as much as an achievement as someone going to uni and getting a degree.
Well, I can tell you, most tradesmen don't want it, because just generally speaking, I know there's always going to be outliers. Generally speaking, people are interested in the trades. They're not looking for a graduation kudos. It's not the way you're wired. It kind of gets back to what Paulie used to say to us all the time when we did our apprenticeship or we were working, is say, you've done a good job because you haven't been sacked, right? Yeah, the fact you knew you did a good job because you got paid. Someone didn't say, I'm not paying for this, right? Those sorts of metrics are what really, this whole idea that you need employee of the month and you need all this pat on the back. And sometimes you got to get back to the simple things, which is, I've been at the company for 7 years. They give me a decent pay rise each year. The one time when I went from being a junior to I spoke to them, I really know my staff and I'm bringing in more work, and they recognised it and they did give me a decent pay rise that year. Like, those are the metrics that tell you where you're going. All this other stuff that you need your ass kissed all the time, it's not healthy for you.
I'm not being heard, Tony. I feel like my development plan is really not hitting the mark for me in terms of the next 12 months.
Yeah. Can you imagine someone on a building site ever saying an equivalent of that?
Can you log on to the payroll portal? Go to the last pay fortnight. Yeah, that heading there, pay slips. Yeah, click on that. No, open it. It's a PDF. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There's your development plan.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, one of the things too is that, and people need to accept this, is that, okay, I know the office is a different environment. I've been there. I'll accept some things. But the way in which you talk and train someone in an office to the way in which you talk and train someone doing an electrical apprenticeship, for example, it's chalk and cheese. Because guess what happens when that person gets it wrong in the office? You hit delete, you resubmit, you amend it. What happens if that kid gets it wrong and it's a live wire? He's dead, right? So you can't afford it. Oh, Tommy, make sure when you do this, you check that the mains are off. You can't do that. It's like, mate, make sure the mains are off. You're fucking dead, right? There'll be no tomorrow, Tommy. I fucking told you. Listen. But again, we've created another problem because a lot of people now, if their kid goes home and says, oh, the boss said to me, fucking this, and they get up. Like, I get really frustrated with this. I really do, because I just don't think there's enough people around anymore that really want to accept and live in reality of how the real world works.
One thing I would have loved to have seen, how old were you when you started working for Paul?
16.
I wish I could go back to when you were 16. Well, the barbershop, the one in Borgo.
Yeah.
And there was a camera in there just to see Paul rip some shreds off you for some. I would have loved it.
Yeah.
If I could just get that, just a couple of snippets, right? Oh,
yeah.
That'd be the best.
And you would, because one thing is, and to people, they don't realize now, a barber is a tradesman. You say trades now, they think it only means construction. No, a baker is a trade. A hairdresser is a trade. These are 4-year apprenticeships, and you do TAFE. And if you think it's over the top, I use cutthroat razors around people's necks, scissors around their ears, and believe me, you're not a barber until you've nicked an ear. And I've put a cutthroat razor through someone's ear when I was an apprentice. And it's not ours. That's still the easy one. But I'll tell you now, if you think it's nothing, go with your wife, or if you're a woman, go to your hairdresser and get someone that doesn't know what they're doing with peroxide, and let's leave that on your head a little bit too long and see how that works out for you, right? And as I've just said, and it gets more serious, an electrician could die. Your house could burn down. Like, these are the jobs that a lot of tradespeople do. There's more risk to it than office. And it's not even just office jobs. I was talking to one of my clients today, a police officer, and he actually said he's been in for, I think, about 7 years. And he goes, for the first time, I'm starting to think about, do I want to keep doing this? He said, because the way it's going, and I've had that with my brother and a whole bunch of other, we've got in our police force right now, the best cops are all thinking about, you know what, I don't want to do this, because you've all gone woke. You want to tell me that the guy that spits in my face, punches me, tells me to fuck off, throws a brick at me, you want to tell me how I arrest him. Like, and you're not understanding. I need to be violent to sort this out.
Yeah.
And in Australia, you've only got to look at Victoria. What's happening is because they went down that, we'll be softly. And what have they got now? Random people that should be in an asylum stabbing someone. They got kids macheting other kids to death. Like, we've got to start accepting there are some jobs that need to be done differently than what happens in the office.
But I think, Dave, I think you're underplaying some of the dangers that I come across in my role from day to day.
No, I recognise you could get a paper cut.
No, worse than that. Like, I asked for my normal coffee order this morning.
Don't tell me he used almond milk.
No, large skinny cap with a bit of honey, right?
Yeah.
And I found out that he's not using actual honey
syrup.
No, he's using Calipano's honey. Like, really?
Oh, well, Tone, this is unacceptable.
Right.
The dangers.
I had to go, mate. I said, do you know who I hit him with? Do you know who I am?
Yeah, you had to.
Right.
I'm the CFO.
These are real life risks.
These are real life risks.
I could have choked on that crap. Now, Dave, some quick fire facts on the tradies versus uni. This one I found really interesting. The average electrician in Sydney now earns more than many graduate engineers, and the top carpenters can out-earn degree holders by their mid-20s.
Yeah.
So you're, as we said earlier, you're 4 years in, you're 60 grand in the hock, right? And by that stage, you're 24, and the guy who's 24 is actually earning more than you and has been earning more money since day one.
Yep. And actually, one group of people we've overlooked in this conversation, because I was reading the other day another article. It's hard to believe I actually read. Well, I look at the pictures and I try to work out the stories, what I do, but I'll call it reading. It said there are some universities in Australia that are starting to get 30% dropout rates, which makes sense because, again, they haven't passed their HSC, they're struggling. But what makes it worse is dropout is normally not week one. You know what? This is not for me before you incur the debt. This is normally one semester, which could still be 10 to 15 grand, but it's normally 2 or 3 semesters in because you try, you push through. So we've got people dropping out that now have incurred a debt of maybe $20,000 that they're paying off with nothing.
I know.
Because you set them up to fail because you made them an offer that they should have been nowhere near your university.
And that's a separate discussion as well, right? The whole early offer thing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's nearly predatory lending.
Yeah.
To me, you're going to 16-year-old, 17-year-old kids and really enticing them to get into this debt on, this promise of a better life and a golden path.
Yeah. So to that point around dropouts, nearly 1 in 5 university graduates are now underemployed, working in roles that don't require their qualification.
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
And actually, it gets, I'll tell you something tangentially as well, and I'm University of Sydney, you want to go at me for this, I'll name names and we'll go with numbers, so I know you won't win this. There are people at the University of Sydney that don't have degrees that are in very high paid jobs. I'm talking, acting directors roles, couple $100 grand a year with all their stuff. Never done a day's study. So they don't even walk the walk. And it's not the only university this is common. I'm not giving some anomaly one person that slipped through the net. They don't even walk the walk. So they're luring your kid into debt, pretending it's the golden path, it's the ticket, and they don't even do it themselves. In fact, one of the things I want to call this episode, and I might call it this, is Are Universities Selling Shovels? Now, the reason why I say that is I read a great piece 20, 25, 30 years ago. Was an investment thing, and what it was saying is in the gold rush, those that got rich weren't those that were panning for gold, because very few people found enough gold to get rich, but those that were selling them shovels, right? So in other words, people that sold them the equipment were selling him the dream. Take your pan, take your shovel, go and spend, let's call it today, go give me $2,000 for your equipment, go out and you could find your fortune. And 1 million people all believed in it. And to me, universities now are selling shovels.
Yeah. So to bring it back to
I'm never going to get hired in here.
Oh, no.
You bring university again.
We talk about the issue.
Well, I should be. I should be in charge to clean the fuckers up.
Fair call. Well, let's close out, Dave, on the magnitude of the problem, just so we're clear, right? So the stats tell us to meet the government's 1.2 million homes target by 2029, Australia will need around 90,000 extra construction workers.
Yeah.
Right? And then...
is this in your data?
Yeah.
See, I've got a good memory. I remember I said
right.
I'd read a report, they were 90,000 short just for the one.
I know. So, and by 2030, the energy...
Just tangentially,
yeah.
The reason why I did actually really well at university, I don't want to sound like a winker. I'm above average intelligence, but I'm no genius by any stretch. But I've got a very good memory, so I was lucky. So if I was in a lecture, I read something, I remembered it.
Yeah.
It's just half the trick to uni.
And the other one is in the energy transition alone will require an additional 30,000 qualified sparkies, electricians, right?
Yeah.
So I just find some of these stats amazing. And then I say to myself, okay, let's wind back. Let's wind back to big Australia, right? It doesn't matter. Even if you halve it and you said you needed 45,000 construction workers and 15,000 qualified electricians, we're still going out the back door.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm telling you now, these numbers are still out. They'd still be short.
Yeah, that's right.
Because the reason why someone's back of the envelope calculation on, here's what we need for the houses. But we're already short. We're already short people to maintain properties, let alone all the build. And you've literally laid out one of your friends can't get a carpenter, can't get a chippy. So these numbers are based on the projected. They're not even based on the current shortfall.
I know. And then the final one, to your broader point around what a tradie is and what it involves. So there's reports from a mob called Job and Skills Australia that says 36% of all assessed occupations are in shortage, with sparkies, plumbers, metalworkers, chefs, and mechanics considered topping the list.
What we've got's a lot of Uber drivers, though.
That's right.
We're covered for Uber drivers.
Dave, you and
Deliveroo.
I have got some massive problems to solve when you finally get to Canberra and I become your chief of staff.
I would love you to be my chief of staff, and I would love to get to Canberra, but let's face it, you and I are too honest and would actually genuinely want to try and do something right for our fellow citizens.
I know, but like the thought of you and I in the Canberra bubble, wow.
Well, I might even start believing in things like The Voice, living in the Canberra bubble. What we need to unite the country is to divide the country. Okay.
Dave, just because we can you finish up with just a bit of Donny? Talk to me about Donny. He's sorted out the Middle East.
Well, I hope he has.
Benny,
I
see Benny overnight wants to throw some more bombs. Maybe, I think he needs to have a harder word to him, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, that's what we'll at the moment, there's an in-principle agreement that we'll see whether or not it sticks.
Yeah.
And, I'm on the Trump train, so this is not me just going at him. I'd be saying this about anyone. There's an in-principle agreement. Some information today, it looks like he's put the real pressure on Zelensky that you're giving up the Donbass and like it's done. And Zelensky was quoted as saying he does agree that maybe they need to freeze the lines of contact at the moment, which is a way of saying, okay, I'm accepting we're not getting this stuff back. So to be fair, if we're looking at it, we're only, we're about 3 months, we're 9 months in, closed border, end of the Gaza-Israel war. There was something else. There's another big ticket item he's done. Restoring law and order. I'm seeing people in some of the cities that they're actually admitting begrudgingly that they haven't been able to walk safely through those areas for 20 years.
But I'd say that's actually part of our previous episode, punishing everyone collectively for the acts of individuals.
Well, is everyone being punished collectively there?
I don't know
because they're not coming in and just there's not martial law, right? So the National Guard's not in there and say it's martial law. So suddenly you can't be out past 9 o'clock. All it is cleaning up the stuff that should have been cleaned up. But Gavin Newsom's a good example of that,
let's face
right?
it, Dave. Come on, man. Come on. Some of these ICE people, mate. Come on.
But even
no ID, wearing masks, pulling people off the streets.
Well, firstly, I'd need to see that happen. The no ID, that's an important one. They should have ID and be able to identify that's what they are. The masks, they should be allowed to wear masks because there are people that are turning around and doxing them and threatening their families. But again, if you're pulling, and I'll even run with this. Let's go with all three of it. Let's say black vans are turning up, bang, bang, bang. Okay, name me one US citizen that they've done that to.
Oh, they have.
No, a US citizen.
Yeah, they have.
Who?
No,
give me the name.
I'll find one for you.
Yeah,
but they've found people who are like US citizens, originally from overseas, but got their citizenship, and because they look different, they're yanked.
I still wonder how you deport a citizen.
I can show you someone, a very high-profile Australian who I follow on social media. He's got 12 million followers because he does some great stuff, and he gets a lot of followers from overseas. He's gone to the US to do some charity work. He got hauled into, in Dallas Airport, he got hauled into by customs and the authorities for 7 hours.
Yeah.
And he looks very Anglo to me.
But the point I'm making is give me the names of citizens who have been deported. And even still, I'll still run with it. What I was going to say is I'll run with it and say they're doing that.
Yeah.
Again, to me, this is one of the problems, how we got to the lawlessness, right?
Yep.
Because we've spoken about the collective, but to me, what's happening is at the end of the day, if you're in the US legally, what are you worried about? So at some point, if it happens to be 0.001% of ICE agents that are just loving this because it's giving them the cover to be a thug and they're doing whatever, you know what? There's some bad apples, but the US at the moment on the far left where they want to say, "Oh, get rid of ICE." That's not every.
No, not something like that.
I'm just saying, Dave. At the end of the day, you're meant to go. We can't start making. You can't run a civilization and a society picking and choosing when you think someone can break the law.
Yeah.
Because if you turn around and go, well, borders aren't mine, they break the law. Okay, well, what if I say, I don't mind if I steal that TV? Like, why do we all get to choose? If you don't like it, what you do is you go, you vote, and you say, actually, we're going to run on the policy that we're no longer going to have any borders. The US is just a land. Run on it and see how it goes.
Yeah. We'll get there, Dave. Don't worry. We'll get there with Trump. We'll get there. Outcomes, Dave.
Yeah,
outcomes.
But I've just laid out to you. He's actually at the moment, he's got some good outcomes. Now, not all of them. I'm still, and even then.
Economically, Dave, he's winding back tariffs now.
Well, to me, that's why I want to see at the end of his 4-year term, because the other thing to do too is.
I'll crucify him now on that. That was stupid. It was stupid.
Yes.
Everyone who's got any understanding of economics knows how that was going to end.
It depends on if it was an ambit claim to get people to the negotiating table.
Now he's winding them back. He's actually winding back any tariffs on things that the US don't manufacture themselves, right? Because he knows he needs to rely on those imports. The whole fiasco where he's now got farmers in Arkansas saying to him, why are you giving $40 billion to Argentina to bail his mate out? And Argentina are now selling soybeans to China because the soybean farmers in Arkansas are going out the back door. You know what? He's the elected president of the US. He's got a mandate. I think he actually got a mandate. And I would just say that whatever the outcomes are, the outcomes are. But I actually think he's in it for himself. He's always been in it for himself, and nothing will make me change my mind. I'm ideologically locked in to that position that he's self first, everyone else second.
I'll extend the podcast too long if I insert this one. But for me, it's still, I will judge at the end of the 4 years because it's the same thing at the moment that I'm not going to, put him up for the Nobel Peace Prize on an in-principle agreement.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Now, if it holds, he should get the Nobel Peace Prize next year. But, and having said that too, I don't necessarily agree with the Nobel Peace Prize because you're the opposition leader.
Yeah.
Like, really? I believe in democracy. I'm the opposition leader. Wow. We're going to be giving you a lot of peace prizes. There's a lot of those people around.
I know.
So, but anyway.
Sorry, Dave, that was a bit of a weave. I take my responsibility for that. So, Dave, all good. Another good podcast episode. We've covered off tradies, and you're going to come up with a lovely title for that podcast, no doubt.
Yeah, I think I'm going to call it University Selling Shovels.
And maybe if you can have a glossary of terms for our overseas listeners so that they understand what a chippy, plumber, sparky tradie is.
Yep. And if you ever ask them, sort of things, have they been busy? They're the sort of people who say stuff like, yeah, mate, I've been busier than a cat burying shit in the marble floor. Been busier than a one-arm bricklayer in Baghdad.
Put that in your Google Translator, overseas people.
Angrier than a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest.
What do I say, Dave?
You have a right to be wrong.
See you, mate.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and we hope you enjoyed it. Like us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.